We're now 2 days removed from the latest federal budget, so how are the parties and the leaders positioning themselves politically? Let's get some insight from our panel of political observers. Susan Smith is the principal of the Blue Sky Strategy Group. Melanie Paradis is the president of Texture Communications. And Kim Wright is principal of Wright Strategies. Welcome back to all three of you. Susan, I want to start with the government's framing of their measures on the green economy. The budget document says Canada will not be left behind, competing for investment with the U.S., with other countries, that the green transition is our generation's equivalent of the transcontinental railroad, that national dream of 150 years ago. So we're seeing some lofty language combined with big tax credits for electricity and other specific sectors. It seems to be a fairly big bet, Susan. Are there risks here?
Risks, but I think the rewards are even higher. And all we need to do is look south to the U.S., the Inflation Reduction Act, known as the IRA, and the over $360 billion in incentives that the U.S. is putting on the table to try and kickstart a clean economy and clean and green manufacturing. So Canada had two choices: do nothing and still be hewers of wood and drawers of water, because we have the critical minerals and the other elements to participate in this. Or option number two, which is the option the government is hoping the business sector takes and is trying to create a scenario where they do, is to step up, step in and create and own our own space in the green economy. Like I said, we have the critical minerals. We've got to get them out of the ground. We know that electricity is already driving what we need as an economy. If you think, people at home just think about all the things they have to plug in, and we're not even at the stage where we're plugging in vehicles and so on. Cleaner, greener economy needs cleaner, greener technology. It's not the government's job to put all the money into that. It's companies' jobs to do that. But if the government can create incentives for companies to invest through tax rebates, that can encourage that kind of investment and create new clean jobs and sustainable jobs for Canadians, and we can lead the sector. So that's the bet the government's making. I'm comfortable with that bet because it requires researchers and companies to step up, but clearly it's something we want to do and have to do as an economy. So I think it's a move in the right direction, right, definitely.
And Kim, so we're now seeing ministers fanning out to sell the budget, including the finance minister. But it's interesting, Jagmeet Singh is planning his own post-budget tour over the next 2 weeks, which isn't something we normally see from an opposition leader. He's visiting 8 cities to take credit for that extra GST rebate and for the dental care spending in the budget. But he's still saying he's unsatisfied when it comes to EI reform and taxes and pharmacare. Where does this budget leave the NDP?
Well, look, and viewers will remember there was the confidence and supply agreement, but as part of that, there were very tangible measures we were looking for from the government of Canada to put into a budget so that the New Democrats could still be supportive of it. That included dental care, which viewers will remember had been in a previous Liberal platform elections. 2 elections ago, got dropped this one. And so Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats made sure that that remained a priority because it is for people who are younger, certainly older folks. Dental health is one of those things where if you take care of your teeth, it actually becomes the gateway to taking care of general health. And what we've also seen has been a massive influx of people who had been using emergency room services to have their dental problems solved. So this is actually good for the economy, good for personal health, and good for mental health. So there's lots to be celebratory for Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats and what they pushed on pharmacare and on the GST rebate against grocery stores. So he should be out there taking credit for that, because if he wasn't, well, that's kind of silly of him to lose that opportunity and that momentum to build on those wins and further wins. But there were certainly some things in this budget that we didn't see for decades, certainly the last few years in particular, but certainly over the last 20 years. The lack of funding for municipalities who are dealing with settlement services for refugees that are coming in. City of Toronto being a massive home to new immigrants and newcomers. They were supposed to continue to get funding for that or get some funding for that. They have been left holding the bag. And that has caused a massive shortfall for municipalities, let alone that we're not seeing the transfers on affordable housing and new housing starts and CMHC unlocking some of those revenues. So there's things that Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats can be excited about, but there are so much more that municipalities in particular have been left behind on.
Okay, so Melanie, let's look at the Conservatives then, because although, Kim is talking about some of the schisms that are still there between the Liberals and NDP, still with that confidence agreement, Conservatives are kind of calling this budget a Liberal NDP co-production, I guess, and you have Pierre Poilievre calling for lower taxes and less spending. Now, reporters have been pressing him on whether he'd maintain those low-carbon tax credits or dental care funding. We know Stephen Harper has been suggesting that saving big policy ideas should happen. You should be saving those ideas for the next campaign. But what specifics should Canadians expect to see in a Conservative fiscal plan?
Well, I think certainly there probably would have been more to shore up trust in our economy, in our banking regime in particular. I personally have been quite concerned about CMHC's really low level of deposit insurance coverage for Canadians. I think that we should see a significant increase there. It hasn't been increased in almost 20 years now. It's currently at about $100,000 per deposit account. And in the United States, it's $250,000. So they had the opportunity to include something like that in the budget, and they just completely failed to do so. I do, however, want to take a page from Aaron O'Toole's recent op-ed in his Substack, where he talked about how we do need to highlight a couple of the good things here. I want to agree with Kim that dental care, universal dental care access, is something that we should all be very happy is in this budget. I hope that it is a very successful program. I don't care which partisan government puts this into place. I hope that it's a success because Canadians deserve this. So I'm very excited that that's in there. I'm also really excited that Todd Doherty's long championed suicide prevention hotline made it into the budget. That's something that hasn't gotten a lot of pickup. There's also a commitment to fund leave for families who experience pregnancy loss, which Blake Richards championed for a long time. So there have actually been a few Conservative wins that were in this budget that I think we should all be quite pleased to see.
Okay, well, on that cross-partisan note of positivity, we're going to switch gears to another story that is perhaps a little more contentious on Parliament Hill. Susan, Conservatives are criticizing the new interim ethics commissioner. Martine Richard is the sister-in-law of Cabinet Minister Dominic LeBlanc. The government says all rules are being followed, but is that going to be enough of an explanation, especially given that the former commissioner found Mr. LeBlanc in a conflict of interest in 2018?
Yeah, this one's a bit of a head scratcher to me. I think we have to divide things into two at first, which is to, I think you're talking about someone who's been an employee and a good employee for 10 years in an organization and risen up in the organization and hired when Prime Minister Harper was in place. But then the flip side of it is she is the sister-in-law to the cabinet minister. This one's a bit of a head scratcher for me. Just the pure optics on it are bad. I'm sure the person in question is highly competent, highly skilled, highly ethical, all of the above. But in this particular case, I think I would have made other choices.
All right, Melanie, let's get your take on this because we've seen, Conservatives raising this issue in the House this week.
Yep, I think that from my perspective, this underscores why we need to move some of these jobs out of Ottawa. I think Ottawa is way too small of a town. Too many people are related to each other. Too many people are friends with each other, have dinner with each other, all of those things. And it just creates too many opportunities for perceived conflicts of interest like this one. We should be moving the Office of the Integrity Commissioner to Flin Flon, Manitoba, to anywhere but Ottawa, because that's really the only place where it's going to be truly independent. I think we should actually see a lot of our bureaucracy spread out across Canada, and that would alleviate many of these problems.
All right, and Kim, we'll give you the last word on this. What do you think of this whole story, the Interim Ethics Commissioner and connections to a current member of Cabinet?
Yeah, I think that there are millions and millions and millions of qualified Canadians who could have taken this job on. This is an unforced error on the government. In fact, this person had been raised, I believe, during the SNC-Lavalin situation as a same sort of situation related to Dominic LeBlanc. How can you clear people in ethics when your family members, who you'll see at Christmas dinner presumably, would be part of an investment?
Though, Kim.
There was, but the same issue came forward, Susan. I guess that's my question. Did they not learn from this being an issue of a person who is far too close to the inner workings of the government to be able to recuse themselves? Look, I think that there are things where within politics, we do need to give some leeway to the fact that there are lots of interpersonal dynamics. And that needs to be considered, especially when we look at ethics and integrity, but also when we look at lobbyist registries and all of that. There needs to be some leeway given, but in this case, the person who's going to be the new top dog in charge of ethics and integrity should probably not be on somebody's Christmas list.
All right, we'll have to leave it for there this week. Thanks to all three of you.